Hi, welcome to Happier SLF, a channel dedicated to your growth toward a happier self, which begins with self-love. Today I want to talk about self-compassion, what it is, how it can help you toward self-love, and how you can cultivate it and become more self-compassionate. In my last video, I talked about 6 ways in which self-love can help you become a much happier person. It can affect almost every aspect of your life in a positive way. And then toward the end of it, I said that I will come up with more videos talking about how you can attain self-love. This is one of them, which talks about self-compassion, something that goes hand in hand with self-love. And by practicing self-compassion, you can clear the path to learning how to truly love yourself. If you want to keep up with these videos, if you're interested in growth and development toward becoming a happier you, then subscribe and then hit the bell button so that you can get notifications every time my new videos come out. You'll be supporting my new channel as well. First, what is self-compassion? Self-compassion is to be kind to yourself, to be accepting of yourself as you are, and to be forgiving of yourself. Why it's important is because most people have this internal critic that's harsh, that's cruel, and that's constantly causing pain. It's like a mean wolf that keeps biting. Look at it that way, right? And that wolf can constantly cause negative feelings such as shame, is anger, is self-resentment, all those things, right? But it's something that can greatly be reduced. So think of it as taking that wolf, making it tame, and eventually turning it into a puppy. That can work wonders in your life. It can, number one, take away so much pain every day. I'm not sure if you're aware or not of how much pain you're giving yourself by being overly critical and punitive and harsh to yourself in here when you talk to yourself. Second, it can turn you into a kinder person, not just to yourself, but toward others. When you start using compassion towards yourself, it becomes easier to use it for others as well. And finally, the most important part, it can pave the path towards self-love. Think about it. Can you really love yourself and at the same time let that wolf go wild and let yourself be criticized and talked down to by your own mind? Can't do it at the same time, right? So first, you want to get rid of that and you want to become more accepting of yourself as you are and taking yourself as a whole so that you can love it. I think if I remember correctly, when I first started working on my self-compassion, I was looking at it as self-compassion and self-love being one and the same. Now, I like to look at it as self-compassion is part of self-love, right? When you love yourself truly, you're also accepting of everything. You're also treating yourself like someone you love. For me, first, I worked a lot on my self-compassion and life became a lot better and a lot more painless. Then I realized there's more work to do to actually actively love myself. But they're both toward the same direction. So now the important question, how do you do it? How do you start working on your self-compassion? I like to break it down into 2 parts. Part 1 is first you have to convince yourself. First you have to really work through why you deserve to be kind to yourself. If you believe that you're an unworthy person and you deserve to be cruel to yourself, then you have to work through that. Because if you're not convinced, then the work won't really work. So you can start by asking yourself this question. Why am I so critical to myself? Why do I deserve all this pain? Is it not true that everything I am up until this point is a result of the best that I've done up until this point, right? And I'll tell you what that means. If anybody was born at the same time, same place, as you were born, with the same exact genes, same exact environment, to the same exact parents, they would be exactly you right now. Because everything that happens has a cause. And at every given moment, you do the best that you could. Let's say I did something yesterday and now I'm resenting myself, and then I say to myself, well, you could have done this. ask yourself, why did you do it? And why did you not do something different? You might say something like, well, because I was too weak to do it. I was too scared to do it. Then, okay, ask yourself, why was I too scared to do it? Or you might say, I was too lazy to do it. Well, why were you too lazy to do it? There is a reason for everything. Now, this is important. It doesn't mean we can use those reasons as an excuse to not grow. That's a different story. Right now is under your control because new things are happening. Because maybe as a result of watching this video, as a result of a new resolution that you have, and anything else that is added to your life, you can do something differently and you can push yourself a lot harder towards your potential. But everything that you have done up until this point is really the only thing that could have happened at each particular moment. Because everything you do is a result of what's in your environment, what's in your memory and your past, and the best decision you can make at that moment. So if you were too weak, if you were too unmotivated or whatever it is, then that's what it was at that moment for you. There was a reason to it. There's a reason to everything. So I said the first part of working on self-compassion is working through it. So one of the ways to work through it and to be convinced that you do truly deserve self-compassion is really understanding the notion of everything has a cause, right? And also think of the fact that whatever you have in you that you don't like, let's say you have anger issues, let's say you have jealousy issues, whatever it is that you don't like and you think of as ugly and you use as ammunition against yourself, think of those things as things that are painful, right? You probably developed them somewhere along the way as you grew up as some sort of defense or some response to some kind of trauma or something harsh or bitter that happened to you, right? Because of that, you actually deserve more compassion and more love, not less. A story that I like to use is one of my clients, true story, sad story. When he was a child, he would come home and he would be beaten up by other kids, bullied and beaten up by other kids for no good reason. I won't get into the details, but the parents, seeing that child disheveled and nose bleeding and all that, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to love the child, they're supposed to calm the child, they were supposed to hug him, give him compassion and love and help him heal. Instead, this guy's parents actually beat him up on top of it, asking him the question, what did you do to get yourself into this? Does that sound cruel or no? The thing is, you're doing that to yourself. You're taking the very things you need more love for, more compassion for, and you're using that to hurt yourself even more by talking to yourself in a way that you shouldn't be talking to someone that you're supposed to love. Okay, so working through this as part one of it might require maybe sitting down and writing down why, maybe a kind letter to yourself, why you think from now on you should give yourself more compassion, why it's irrational to beat yourself up for things that you actually need to give yourself more compassion for, why it's okay to accept yourself exactly as you are with all your flaws, to accept yourself, have compassion for yourself. Okay, and then part two of how to increase it. So when I convinced myself and when I worked through all of this, I wrote a letter to myself as a child. First I was angry, and then I became accepting, and I became loving, and then I said, you deserve all the best things, and you deserve compassion and self-love. And I worked through all of those things. And then guess what? Those feelings were still there. The wolf was still there. It was still biting because I was living my everyday life, and this thing that I've been living with for years and years is so fast and quick to cause pain that it kind of bypasses the new thought process that I want to have, the new self-compassionate thing that I want to have. And most fundamental changes, like I keep saying, are like that. So you need to reprogram by having a dialogue with it over and over and over again. You need to be mindful of when it happens, every time that thing starts to bite, every time you start talking to yourself in a non-self-compassionate way, and you need to talk back to it. That's what I had to do over and over and over again, because logically you're convinced, and that's important and it's absolutely necessary. But you also need to constantly work on reprogramming that thing that you've been used to. How do you do that? How do you do part 2? How do you reprogram? My suggestion is this. As you work through information about self-compassion, part of part 1, I would like for you to pick out a statement that really speaks to you. So whether it's writing your journal, if you pick out something in it, or if you watch something here that really clicks for you and makes you go, oh, yes, I do deserve self-compassion. Or if you read a book on it, which I'll recommend in a minute, and you find something in that book that really speaks to you, that really every time you read that sentence or statement, you can feel kind and compassionate to yourself, then take that sentence or statement, write it down on a piece of paper, and carry it with you at all times. Then you need to stay mindful to catch those thoughts that are not too nice. And every time you hear yourself talking to yourself that way, take that sentence out and read it. I suggest even reading it in front of a mirror sometimes, or many times. Throughout the day, you have to keep doing it. If you want to read a good book on self-compassion to pick out more material to start practicing, I recommend SelfCompassion by Kristin Neff. It was a life-changing book for me. Very good book. But I'll tell you what I would say every time I recommend a self-help book. The most important part of reading a self-help book is the practice. If someone asked me if they should read 5 pages of a book and keep practicing something from those 5 pages every day versus read the entire book and think that, oh, okay, I'm changed now, everything's good, that somehow magically that book is going to change their lives, I would go with the first one. Action is really important. So even if you don't finish the book, you pick out something from it that can help you change. That's the best thing you can do with a self-help book. Repeat, repeat, repeat. That's what you got to do. You got to do this for self-compassion, for self-love, and everything that's fundamental change. And if you don't have the motivation for that repetition, then you might want to wait. You might want to wait until you have more motivation, or you might want to educate yourself more on the benefits of that new change so that you'll be more motivated. That is one of the reasons why I made the previous video on 6 reasons why self-love can truly change your life and make you happier, is to increase your motivation. So you might want to watch that. If you are ready to do this, then I'm happy for you. And just to recap, 2 parts I'd recommend for becoming more self-compassionate. Number 1, you work through it to truly convince yourself that self-compassion is the rational choice, not being self-punitive or self-resenting. And once you're really convinced, number 2, reprogram yourself by being mindful, catching those thoughts, and talking back to it with a sentence that's strong for you. And remember, that sentence or statement has to have some kind of an emotional valence for you, right? So you don't want to just take something and just read it robotically and think that that's going to change. You want to feel it. Do it in a way that you feel it. If hugging yourself as you do it helps, then do it by all means. It might feel silly at first, but if this is what it takes for you to change, then try to do it and get used to it. Get used to loving yourself. Get used to giving yourself the same kind of compassion that you would want to get from someone you love or you'd want to give to someone. Stay tuned for more of these videos if you share the same passion that I do for growth and becoming a better version of yourself, a happier version of yourself, by subscribing. And if you have a question about the things that we talked about, or if you're interested in a particular topic that you'd like to see videos about, please leave it in the comment section. I will be really happy to see it. I'll see you soon. Take good care of yourself and have a great day.